juggle around the stability and the velocity. So the learnings we had from our journey, right? This year, basically, we moved to a model called as unit economics.
Hello all, welcome to Amnic Cast. This is the inaugural version, and then it's a one-stop destination to understand about cloud reliability and cost efficiency. And I'm Satya, co-founder of Amnic, along with Ankit Bhatti and Nimesh Joshi. And here I welcome one of the eminent DevOps person, Rajdeep, and he has been leading DevOps practices at Lenskart. Rajdeep, why don't you introduce yourself and take us through your journey from how you have seen the things from a systems engineers to a modern cloud world.
Hey, hi Satya, hi all. Uh, Thanks a lot. So, uh, if I have to brief about myself, I started my journey, from a network background, right? I started my career as a network engineer in one of the VAS-based company, right? At that point of time, VAS was a pretty hot thing, right? There were not much smart devices or smartphones available at that point of time, right? And my core job that point of time was to monitor the logs and systems, right? It was a very boring job, right? Later on in my career, I realized that that was one of the key assets that I gained there, and still is. uh, so from that profile, I slowly moved to a typical HTTP based platform, right? From SMSC to an HTTP based platform. I joined one of the leading job portals at that point of time, right? Got a lot of learning, right? That point of time, there didn't used to be much choices in terms of browsers, right? uh, I think Apache was the most dominant browser at that point of time. So we had to hack and build a lot of solutions. Memcache was coming up, so not too many options in terms of caching. So a lot of you know uh, lot of things we had to build on our own, right? Uh, had an opportunity to work on working on the Ultra Monkey project at that point of time. I think we have a lot of load balancing software right now, hardware software. That point of time, Ultra Monkey, Heartbeat, these were like key critical components. And looking at the kind of traffic that we used to get, we had to kind of redesign a lot of that stack, right? uh, Luckily, I was part of the team, which was doing that. Got to know a lot of things about, how do you build binaries and how do you kind of tune the kernel, right? When you are working with a certain specific software stack or web server, right? Uh, from there, I was looking for some bigger challenges, right? Uh, I stumble upon an IM platform, right? Instant messaging was catching up in India, right, and across the world. And lucky enough for me, joined kind of the first instant messaging platform. And a lot of learnings were there, a lot of challenges were there in terms of the concurrency levels, as well as a lot of attack on the platform. Got to know about how do you feel when you are hit with actually a DDoS attack, and a lot of flooders into the platform. So uh, from there, I joined my, where I am working right now, an eyewear e-commerce company, right? Which was scaling up, and again, had a different set of challenges there. So gradually, I matured from a network engineer to a kind of system administrator, and then slowly matured into a IC role in DevOps, and now into a leadership position.
Awesome, fascinating journey. And when did you start your cloud journey in this space? Like you have been in the ops world to a current cloud world, right? When did that happen actually?
So, Satya, to be very honest, in early in my career, I was not a very true believer in cloud, right? I was a bit anti-cloud, right? Especially this was a time when AWS used to run their instances in S3 batch store, right? And suddenly the instance will go down without any, kind of traces, right? So I was a guy who was coming from a bare metal world into the cloud world. So it took me some time to adapt to the cloud world. Uh, but I think the way AWS caught up, right? The way they matured their S3 platform and their different, networking capabilities, and how flexible they made the load balancing, and how quickly, we could, scale up. I think, slowly when I was in my the instant messaging company, right? So there, they wanted to be more agile, right? In terms of they wanted to take the business life in a very short period of time, right? So hardware could have taken us a lot much more time to procure and go live. So we took a call to go with AWS, because AWS was the prominent player at that point of time. So I had the opportunity to actually design the whole cloud infrastructure, and that was a good learning journey for me, and got to know about a lot of pitfalls, made a lot of mistakes while designing that architecture, and that journey still continues, right? So I think uh, from doing manually to slowly maturing into a proper DevOps engineer has been the journey for me.
Awesome, amazing. And why don't you take us through your Lenskart journey in terms of where you started, where things are, so that we can deep dive into some of the best practices that you follow.
Cool. So, so I joined Lenskart in 2017, right? To be very honest, I knew very little bit about Lenskart, right? And this was a time when, uh, my instant messaging company was about to get shut down, right? And I was looking for a more challenging opportunity. And that was the time, I joined Lenskart. uh, that point of time, I think, just like any other startups, there were a lot of issues, a lot of cultural issues, a lot of security issues, the way they were operating, right? Business was also, kind of scaling too fast, right? Uh, we were, I would say, it was a juggle around the stability and the velocity, right? And I think the initial phase of startup, the velocity wins, right? So there, the major focus was that how do we make these, first of all, how do we trace all these infrastructure, right? We were kind of sitting in a lot of, I would say, a lot of pile of work, right? uh, and that point of time, we thought of that, if we don't put all these things in a place where we could track, right, these changes, uh, we are done for, right? And that is where we slowly started adopting Terraform as our infrastructure code. uh, we were also using Packer to some extent. uh, but I think that there were a lot of lot of variables there inside one box, which could be packaged inside Packer. Uh, Also, we were so there were a lot of like quality engineers doing a lot of manual changes inside a production box. So there was a we had to look out for a way where we could actually track all these changes, right? And make it mandatory for a compliance process to bring in, right? So very quickly we brought in Chef. It was a very holistic project where we had to. So basically, at that point of time, there was no documentation, right? There was a lot of friction, right? And that point of time, we were juggling with these stability issues. So we had to bring in a program where all these teams, right, they sat together. They, kind of extracted all these configurations from the application. They pushed them to a version control system, right? And we pushed it through Chef, right? Uh, the best thing that we did during that point of time, that before we started, right? Uh, I would say it was purely a system admin team or a cloud engineering team, which was purely focused on kind of managing these stuff. So they were always in the center of everything, right? And what our objective from very start was that slowly we have to, kind of break this, chain, right? Because a team sitting in the center is never going to basically allow a velocity, right? So the focus was always there, but the problems were huge, right? So what we did was this: when we, pushed these changes to chef, we trained the dev team, right? We told them that you take the lead, right? You don't have to rely on us. So we were at that point of time only doing kind of the audits, right? Are they following the compliances? Later we automated those compliances, to be auto rejected or, auto approved, uh, based on, different other checks. So that was one way the team, quickly gained some sort of velocity. I still remember, that when we were importing Terraform, we had some hard codings in our code bases, right? So there is one prominent company right now, at that point of time, it used to be called as Spotins, right? So we had to, take this problem statement with them that, we have to handle somehow that, these IPs should not change, right? Once the system come up. So they actually took this feature request, and they were very agile team, and they helped us with this feature request. And this is how we were, with a mix of features and, some hacky ways and some ways, but the approach was always the same, right? That we had to slowly break out, we had to slowly break out. We were also doing deployments using Jenkins, right, where SSH keys were used. We were kind of doing a one-to-one mappings, right? So slowly we moved to tag based model, right? We started tagging our infrastructure. So from there, things were going good. We had set up all these things. They were all stable. Things were running fine. Only we had certain hiccups. A lot of ad hocs were coming into the system. A lot of dependencies, as usual, was there on the DevOps team. But I think the major mindset shift happened in the engineering during COVID, right? So Lenskart basically operated in a model where more traffic was coming from the offline, right? So Lenskart has a kind of offline stores, right? It's an eyewear company. It's got offline stores, and there are online stores, right? So major traffic used to come from the, offline stores, and during this, all the stores got shut down, right? And suddenly there was a shift in the, business strategy, and all these, traffic was shifted towards online, right? Uh, but we have never seen that kind of traffic at Lenskart uh, on our online platforms. And there, I think, the major issues started happening. We started to see all the tech debts, kind of in clear daylight, right? Where there were issues, where there were roadblocks, right? We had to take even calls, fixing issues over the calls, right? We couldn't, deprioritize them. And this is where we started taking a call that, we can't sustain into this model. We need a faster system. We need faster scalings, right? So we started experimenting with containers, right? We first of all we experimented with our own hosted version of Kubernetes, right? uh, it was clearly a lot of hassle in managing our own piece of Kubernetes, and it didn't took us much time to realize that we don't want to manage this, so we quickly adopted to a managed version. uh, but I think the major issue happened when we went with Kubernetes on stateful set to begin with. We took the whole solar cloud into Kubernetes, and initially it worked pretty fine, and then the major disaster happened for us, right? The entire solar cluster went down, right? A major downtime for us. A lot of key learnings were there for us, that uh, we should have done a lot of chaos testing, resiliency testing. We should have taken a lot of cases before actually moving this to production. So we took a step back, and we kind of wanted to mature this program more, because we had by that time realized the power of Kubernetes. It's just that we maybe didn't took those steps, or didn't do proper due diligence before taking things live. So it took us some time, and we did a lot of resiliency testing. We changed our strategy. We started with, maybe, the service which had least business impact, right? Because we wanted more validations, right? That things work. And this is where slowly things started to change. We saw a lot of issues. Initially, we were working with manifest file in the pipeline. Later, we abstracted all these files into Helm charts, right? And we moved them to different value files. And slowly, we kind of abstracted all of these into independent systems, right? We designed the whole pipeline. We moved to a separate, pipeline software, which basically helped us gain more control over the pipeline, right, with better authorizations, so that we could abstract all these manual flows which we had in our system to this pipeline software. And since then, I think the journey has been quite phenomenal. I think if you look at the latest number, I think 1600 times we deploy in a week. So this came from 8 deployments to I think 1600.
Wow.
So we're still the number is still increasing each week.
And and just a follow-up question, what do you use for like so earlier you talked about how Jenkins and all, now you talked about Helm, right? What is your overall pipeline to deploy at this frequency?
Sorry, what's the question? Sorry, I didn't get it.
So what is the overall pipeline? You use Jenkins, you use CD, like on Kubernetes, like how do you deploy at this frequency?
So currently the software that we use, the CI and the CD flow is in the same tool itself, right? And I won't say it is a CI CD, but it's more of a pipeline. It's more of an orchestration of our entire chain of flow, because we wanted the adoption to be simpler, right? The teams who were actually adopting this tool should basically understand that what the current flow was, the manual flow, and integrate it into their existing flow, right? So even earlier the Jira ticketing used to be a manual flow for the teams. We integrated even the Jira transitioning, state transitioning into the tool, right? So it's now no manual effort. Now we are integrating. I won't say it's a complete flow, but I think most of the services we have been able to integrate the testing flows as well, and we're still maturing all the test cases to basically run the entire flow into the pipeline itself. So we want it to be absolutely hands-free.
Awesome, awesome. So if you take a step back, right now you have seen, you have moved into Kubernetes, you talked about some of the challenges. Having gone through this, if you take a step back, what are the, we as at Amnic, we see a lot of our customers are in the journey of moving to Kubernetes, right? So to them and to the viewers, what are the best practices that you would see for people moving into Kubernetes now, so that they don't need to make the same mistakes and then they can learn from how you guys have done?
So I would say that so the learnings we had from our journey, right? So we had I think at that point of time when we had started adoption of the Kubernetes, I think we were already in the journey of so we were somewhere between a service oriented architecture and a microservice architecture, right? We are still not a pure microservice architecture, uh, but we had a lot of applications which were on monolith, right? uh, so the development team kept on working on breaking these monolith into microservices, but we didn't delay the journey that we wait for the entire cycle to complete and then we move. We did what we did was that we package these monolith applications, and what we did was that we first abstracted all these dependencies on these applications, which were maybe some of the application might be having some sticky session feature, or they might be having some properties which are hard coded inside applications, right? Some of them might be having some memory leak issues, right? So these were we were just making them compatible with the container ecosystem, right? And we were extracting all these. Another thing that we did was that we were not kind of So earlier in VM style, they would actually write these properties into property files, right? What we did was that we injected these variables as an environment variable, right? So also in some of the cases, in many of the cases where we could actually upgrade the Spring Boot version, where we were able to upgrade the Spring Boot version, we moved to console, right? For better, integration with console, right? For configuration management. So once we were able to kind of bring all these features, because we wanted these to be absolutely abstracted, right? Now you're thinking in those lines that this is my application tier, this is my storage tier, this is my network tier, right? So we were considering them as layers of abstraction for us, right? This is my property tier, or this is my RBAC policy. So we are more towards that policy driven approach, and Helm was basically helping us package all this into a single composite application. So and this model also helped us to move these to pipeline model better, as we could build it once and kind of import these images to different other environments. Earlier we used to basically maybe build it multiple times, right? There was no synchronization between the stages, so there was no transitioning that was happening. So it was also compatible with that model, right, from the security point of view as well. So once we reached to a point where it was container compatible. One more thing, we also added some of the applications, we also added health checks, right? Some of them were missing health check features, we added health checks. And then we did a round of load testing on these applications, right? We brute forced them, we tried to find out where they could go wrong, and we were able to reach to a point where we could benchmark them, that a pod could serve this amount of traffic, one pod, right? And accordingly we actually put different scaling policies into the our autoscaler. And I think it worked pretty well. Some of I think one of our monolith actually runs on a 16 GB heap, right? And it's a very critical application, it still does. So so yeah, I think it works, right? It worked for us, I think it can work for all other companies as well.
Awesome, Rajan. Great to hear. So you've come from 8 deployments to 1600 deployments, kind of a stuff a week. What are the challenges that you have now in terms of now that you have scaled to this, your deployment is working, velocity you have done, stability you have done. Like, what are the challenges that you face now in terms of what do you look forward in terms of solving it?
So I think now the biggest, I think, challenges for us is first of all, once you give control to the teams, right? They want more controls, right? And this is where we want to empower them, and we are taking a step back, right? We are focusing more on the platform side of things. So Kubernetes is our platform right now, and we are exposing more and more tools, right? So right now, creating maybe Docker files or Helm charts is a manual process. We are, kind of automating this whole flow, moving them to a more template-based model so that they are easily reproducible, so that the devs can take their own services live on their own. The second thing is, we basically track there are certain patterns of tasks which are kind of very repeatable in nature, and it won't make sense to kind of keep doing those. So one of them is like creation of new environments, right? uh, or like as I mentioned, creating a KV store, right? So we slowly started adopting things like, we moved our entire, configuration management system into a CI/CD format. Like it's not a CI/CD, it's more of a GitOps format, and we have basically enabled the dev team now to raise PRs and MRs and get it merged. There is a proper workflow, right? The DevOps need not be in the center of it. Similarly, so there was another missing piece that was documentation, right, in our tech side. So we basically introduced a documentation site for us, which was again hosted on top of Kubernetes, right? It was again following the GitOps model, and the teams adopted it fast. Other teams are also catching up into the same framework. So I think these kind of things are the next biggest challenge for us. Where I think the biggest of them is, I think, the reproducibility of more staging environments, because now with this amount of velocity we can't operate on a specific set of environments. We need more environments, test beds, where people could test different features. Uh, Similarly, I think policy-driven approach is another thing where we want to basically introduce this. Uh, we don't want again to be sitting in the middle and doing guardrails of who deploys what. I think it's better to basically implement policies into the platform itself and let the policy do the talking, right? So I think it's in 2021 we moved to a model called shared responsibility, where the teams or the platform engineering teams, they're focusing more on their application side of things, and we are more focusing on giving these tools and the platform to basically deploy stuff. So I think there is a clear separation of concerns now, and this has really helped us drive the technology. I think uh, the more we work in this same direction, I think the better results we'll get, right?
Got it. Got it. Awesome. And how do you manage cost at this kind of a scale? Right? One of the things that when I talk to a lot of our customers, right, cost and managing cost at scale with something are running the resources, the network, storage. Like, how do you actually manage cost, and what are some of the tools that you use to actually do that?
Yeah, I think cost is a major thing. I think not just for us. I think all the companies who are there in cloud, right? There's a concept that has recently come up, like FinOps, or uh, the finance sustainability model. So how do we do is that the first thing that we do at Lenskart is that we tag heavily, right? Any resource that is there in the infrastructure, we focus on tagging. If anything is not tagged, it's reported in our space, hangout spaces. uh, that's one thing we do. uh, there are a couple of factors that we basically use to measure, right? uh, and this year basically we moved to a model called as unit economics, right? Where we are trying to break down the cost per unit, right? And here I think it extends beyond, I would say, the just the cloud cost, right? uh, so basically there is a team that has been formed, which uh, constitutes the leadership team from the engineering, the DevOps, the finance team, right, the commercial team, right? And we all sit together and basically strategize, right? So a couple of points that we look at is, one is the unit cost, right? Second is the wastage percentage that we look at, right? The third thing which we are working on is the break even point, right? For the commitments. uh, so I think these three are the major things which covers most of it, right? The third point is something which we have. The first one, the unit economics, and the third one is something which is still work in progress for us.
Mhm.
Apart from that, we use tools, right? Which basically generates team-wise reports that what is their efficiency score in terms of the usage of the infrastructure, right? uh, we also get anomaly reports, that where there are wastages happening, or if there is a deviation in the trend, right? uh, and from time to time, we keep having these meetings where we discuss all these reports, right? And we prioritize in our roadmap, right? There could be certain kind of older application which might be consuming an S3 bucket, right, publicly. So these kind of things where we can move into a cloud front distribution, or working on some private pricing, or working with different kind of instance type to optimize the cost, right? So I think now the maturity has increased. Yeah. So even my finance team knows what is a spot instance, right? And they know what is a graviton, and they keep pushing me to run everything on spot. I say that, you please hold that. It's not to recommend. So yeah, I think there's a long way to go, but I think, yeah, it's a continuous improvement process.
Awesome. Just anything you talked about Graviton, you talked about Spot. Any top 3 or 5 cost optimization techniques that you use that everybody could just follow it, like on top of your head, like
So yeah, so this is a technique that we used at Lenskart, right? So we built it from scratch, although we didn't publish it. Maybe sometime we'll publish it. So what we did was that, when we initially went with EKS, we were, splitting our resources into multi-AZs, and that definitely, kind of increased our, AZ transfer cost to a very large extent. So what we did was that we designed our internal scaling policy in such a way that there is a fallback at different levels. We fall back at 6 different levels, right? We start from Graviton till AMD and Intel, from spot to on demand into multi AZs. So I think by using this technique, right now our wastage percentage stands somewhere between 16 to 18%, right? And by wastage percentage, how I'll define is that, the basically a headroom that you will maintain in case of any spot instance bouncing or scaling up. So this is where we track it right now, because we are an e-commerce company. We don't get such burst of request unless until it's a DDoS kind of attack. uh, so this is one way, one technique. Another thing is, we uh, uh, as I mentioned, we moved to Graviton, right? I think this has really helped us kind of optimize the cost. The third thing is, a lot of storage is consumed by the organizations, right? So they can go for GP3, or use your private uh, endpoints in your VPC for S3, because most of them don't leverage it, but it has a lot of implication on cost. Uh, Another thing, our major focus market is around the APEC region, right? So once we started our journey, there was no India region, right? So we started with Singapore, and now we are planning, we are gradually moving to India. So that could again be a big boost for the egress cost. It could help us optimize that. Uh, the last one I would say is, you play around with the savings plan and RIs, right? One of the reasons we are moving to India is to basically do a better commitment in terms of the RIs, right? Specifically, we chose savings plan because we wanted to be flexible in terms of the choice of instances we could make, and also we had plans to move to India region. So I think companies can play around with that also, and that could help them save massively. And another, I think, working with different tiers of storage. Uh, when you're using EFS, use infrequent access. So different policies could be built to basically optimize those costs. See if there are any dangling resources, right? Any elastic IP storage, right? We have built a lot of Lambda functions to basically do a reporting and cleanup, right? So these kind of things could be done to do continuous cleanup and reporting of these resources. We also moved from, I think, classic load balancer to now ALBs. Uh, in some cases, we also moved to NLBs. Uh, but when you're moving to ALB, I think be cautious about your rule evaluation, and that is one thing I like to tell you. So I think these are some of the things I think which has really helped us.
it's amazing. I think you have touched upon compute savings, RIs, to how you do different processors to storage to network. I think it's amazing to know like you guys have pretty much touched upon every aspect to actually bring down the and keep the cost under control, right? So one of the things that we get asked is like, you have a huge velocity now, right? Like so many deployments are happening, and you also have to be cost conscious. You talked about how multi AZs and Kubernetes can have its own challenges, right? And you have to also have reliability, because if you're running on one AZ, then if something happens, how do you? What is your thought process in balancing these three things, right?
Uh, so uh, so yeah, I think every nine has a cost, I would say, right? And this is where you have to balance, right? I would say that we are slowly moving to a model where latency is the downtime for us at this given point of time. So we work on different DR models, right? Be it database or also Kubernetes. So we are still testing things where there is a proper fallback in place, right? So I'll tell you that sometimes we even face issues from the authoritative DNS side of things. So this is where we are still testing, I would say, uh, but right now we are AZ resilient. Uh, Region resiliency is still something that we have not gone live with, but we are playing around with a few things in databases. Post that, as I said, that every nine is going to cost you. So this is where I think better, if you have a better commit, I think then you could play around with multi regions. One approach that we are working on is if we could leverage a single AZ in one cloud and another cloud for a fallback. That is something which we are still testing. That is one way to also kind of address DR issues. Uh, so we have kind of worked out an architecture. Uh, I would say that as you go along, I think slowly as your business grows and the resiliency is an even bigger, I would say, a business goal for the whole company. So you keep building those plans around it, right? And for us right now, I think it's still a thing in progress for us, where we are working right now more around, I would say, the AZ resiliency, right? The next thing is for us is the region resiliency.
Got it. Awesome. Awesome. And switching into a different topic, right? How do you choose between, like, either you build it in-house in terms of with your engineering team or with your team, infra team, or you actually buy something in terms of what it can do?
Uh, so, uh, uh, so first of all, we don't have a lot of tools. We don't procure a lot of tools, right? We are very picky about the tools we use, and one of the criteria for us is the adoption, right? Uh, because we have kind of faced issues where we had, kind of onboarded a tool, but it didn't had much adoption, right? So we don't want any kind of dangling tools in our system. Whatever we use, we work, to abstract every feature out of it, and this is where the teams all collaboratively use these tools. So in our cases, I think the choice is pretty simple for us. Where so for us right now, business goals are at the prime, right? We have a lot of features, and we are operating at a huge velocity, uh, and we don't have much time to kind of build our own stack, right? Whenever we get time, right, we try to kind of pick these projects where we want to build our own platform, right? But these are very clearly defined in advance that we want to build certain platform and slowly mature it. So this is where anything outside of that, right, we try to kind of uh, buy it, right, or kind of lease it out, right? So this has really helped us to accelerate our kind of velocity, right? uh, you don't want to be working in areas where it's not going to give business value, right? So our core focus value is on the business side of things. And you know uh, our focus area right now is to basically improve the developer velocity, right? Anything apart from that, it may be log aggregation, it may be kind of uh, you know uh, managing a CI/CD platform or something like that. We just kind of take help, right, from our partners, right? Uh, so I don't know. Maybe in future we might think about it, right? But I think now it's not the time.
Got it. Got it. How about your data platform kind of stuff? Do you build an in-house data platform in terms of getting all these data? Like, what are your data ops practices in that?
So data ops right now. So so there is a data ops platform which works with our analytics team, right? So we work with a huge set of data, right? Because we do analytics on per store basis, right? Or the entire user journey from where a customer purchases from which store and all, right? To get the feedback from the customers. Similarly, there are other data platforms where there's other data ops team which actually works with the customer backend teams, right? So in terms of the analytics part, we use a lot of managed services because we are dealing with a huge amount of data, and huge kind of processing of these datas, and almost real time. So we use a lot of managed services in AWS, right? Redshift, or streaming services and things like that. In terms of customer backend systems, uh, we still host a lot of these our databases in-house, right? Because we keep tuning them a lot of time as per the flow of data, and also the flow of traffic, right? So we don't run them on manage. We prefer to kind of manage them on our own. We are slowly testing them on the platform Kubernetes, right? So it's still a work in progress, but slowly we want to kind of horizontally scale. I think that's the next challenge we want to solve in data engineering. Also, we are working on the CDC model, right? So we could version control these changes, because right now, slowly, as the company is growing, a lot of compliances we have to follow, and we want to be more transparent in kind of our dealings. So that is another thing, where the data ops team is constantly working on. So yeah, I think over a period of time, we have seen a huge data spike in our customer backend systems as well. And it's just that we are kind of adopting more of these data ops practices. Again, as we did in DevOps, uh, we are kind of building platforms to self-service these changes, right? Like, no need of a data ops guy to be present for crazy creating user access, building pipelines around it. Similarly, for any kind of simple database changes. So these are the things we are slowly building, right? And yeah, again, it's a journey, right? And we're still in that journey. uh, and gradually we are moving to those versions where we could actually horizontally scale, right? And we're testing around, how can we run these data systems with huge storage backends on top of Kubernetes.
Awesome. I think it's been a fascinating stuff. Right now, what are some of the key takeaways that you want the listeners to leave with in terms of you have come a long way from where you were in terms of velocity, reliability, cost. Right? If you want to pick and say like, hey, here are the takeaways from my journey of last 18 years, like what would those be actually?
So I think what has I would change. I would say changed in me as I matured towards DevOps. I think it's not a 1 day or a 1 year or 2 year journey, right? I think I would say DevOps is a more mindset thing. Uh, Tech, the tooling and all plays a important role, but I think the mindset is very important, right? Uh, I see a lot of companies. they say their teams are adopting DevOps, but if I ask them, what is your business, KPI, they don't have idea, right?
Mhm.
So I think, if the teams, or if the company is not transparent about what they want to achieve, right? I won't. So the first thing I think that kind of engraved in me when I was actually practicing DevOps was transparency, right? That was the number one thing I was gunning for. Uh, because once the systems are not transparent, there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of cultural issues, right? A lot of technical issues. And I think the best way to solve is that you expose these systems to your customers, right? In my case, my customers are the product team or quality engineering team, or the software development team. So these are my customers, right? Uh, Also, we didn't restricted us to just engineering team, right? Uh, Currently, we build solutions for maybe the HR team also, right? Maybe the marketing team, right? Maybe the sales team. They come to us, they talk to us, that can you help us out? I think that is the success for any DevOps team if they can make this program inclusive, right? It's not about exclusivity, right? It's about inclusion. uh, and the more and more you make things transparent, right? Be it your observability, be it your alerting, right? You build solutions for your customers, right? You are better aligned with the business goals, right? You are not doing something because you feel excited about it, right? But it makes sense for the business, right? I think these are some of the, because once we were we were kind of picking tasks which made a lot of sense for the business, right? Eventually, they converted into better growth of the business, right? If you are doing DevOps and you're not creating an impact, right? I don't see that there is somewhere a disconnect, right? So I think it's more about kind of getting people closer, right? uh, Sometimes I would say that 60% of times it was non-technical, right? uh, you won't just walk into a room and tell that from next day you have to do this, right? He will tell you that I don't care, right? Whatever you say to me, right? So it takes time to build that confidence, right? You have to basically show them the value, right? Show them that even one of the factors for us was to maintain a better work life balance, right?
Mhm.
So in the DevOps team we were working on those lines. Somebody will come to me that it's a HR job, right? I say maybe some part of it, but I won't restrict myself to that, right? How can I improve the quality of life of a software engineer, right? I think these are some of the key takeaways, and I think the mindset shift, I think, which all those who are listening, I would like them to take away. Better align yourself to the business goals, and keep talking about this. Right? I used to talk with my management that how can we push up the online sales, right? You
Mhm.
don't need to go and talk to your CEO that how can I push the online sales, right? You can just talk to your manager, right? That okay, what can I do? Two, three things you want me to do that I could create an impact, right? Or I can accelerate things, right? So I think this is where, although I would say that DevOps is a program that comes, kind of top down, right? There has to be first resolve from the management that they are serious about it, and they want everyone to be aligned. We did initially from midway to up, right? So we took a lot of time, and then the management, then things came kind of top down, right? And I think now everyone realizes the importance of DevOps, right? DevOps is not a team, right? Or any designation. I think it's a more of a cultural shift that happens in your mind and then in your actions. So that is a key takeaway I would like to,
Awesome. Just a follow-up thing to that one, right? I think we talked a lot on technical aspect. I think you brought an amazing stuff of cultural aspect to it, right? Are there anything we talked about 60% I spend time, right? How do you make sure that the team see the benefit of that one? Is that more talking and then making them see it? Like, how did you actually shift that?
So what I did, Satya, right, that earlier the teams, let me start with my team, right? So earlier they used to see a bunch of tasks coming and they just executing it, right? So what I did differently was that I started giving them context that what is the benefit of this task on the business outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
How how they can do this differently and what are the implications, right? How can they, let's say there is a big, how can they basically break it down into multiple milestones to get a buy-in from the management, right? Or to basically show the impact, right? What they need to do to make this more visible, right? Impact more visible, right? Earlier maybe they didn't used to put much heart into observability, right? Much heart into documentation, right? Much heart into the QS, right? So later they slowly, it took some time, but they slowly started to understand, right? And this was slowly I could get them all on the ship, and same I did with other teams, right? I started giving them value, and I started them kind of connecting them with the business goals, right? And then slowly it became like it slowly went into an autopilot mode, right? After I would say a 2 to 3 years of effort, it went to an autopilot mode, where now the team have started talking to me like this, right? That I'll pick that task where you show me the business outcome. Sometimes it backfires, right? But yeah, I'm happy they're asking this question to me, right?
It's fascinating to see a person on one side on the technology that you have seen from systems to the computer, like cloud world, from EC2s to Kubernetes. On the other side, the same person is also talking about business goals and how do you work with the team to actually change the shift and then actually achieving it. It's a pleasure to have you, Rajdeep. It's amazing stuff, right? Thanks for taking time and then being part of our inaugural Amnic cast. And thanks so much.
Thanks, Satya, for having me. Thanks a lot.